Any teacher who would go after a student for their political opinion lacks the proper amount of self control to lead a classroom. There, I said it. Here we have another one of those stories. Florida teacher faces discipline after most likely to become a dictator mock award sparks backlash. So, without knowing all the particulars, because we're going to go through it together. Okay, so this teacher is a left leaning, politically speaking, and possibly the student leans to the right, and so the teacher gave the student most likely to become a dictator mock award. Like what? Okay, let's just go through this. We just gotta stop. A teacher in Florida is facing possible discipline reportedly after giving a student a mock award, dubbing him most likely to become a dictator, sparking swift backlash from the student's mom and state education and political leaders. Now, there you go. You got more politicians jumping in and saying stuff, making a name for themselves. A Gainesville high school history teacher, is under investigation after allegedly presenting a student voted award for most likely to become a dictator. It appears that this incident happened several years ago. However, the student's mom discussed the situation last week during a Florida State Board of Education meeting, saying the incident caused lasting harm to her son and alleging that Alachua County Public Schools were critical of conservative political viewpoints. The Florida Department of Education has filed an administrative complaint citing alleged violations of state statutes and professional rules. The Commissioner of Education alleged the teacher violated 3 different Florida statutes involving moral turpitude and personal conduct, plus 4 different rules. The administrative complaint against the teacher states that she failed to protect the student from conditions harmful to learning or the student's mental health, intentionally exposed the student to unnecessary embarrassment, and harassed or discriminated based on political beliefs. There's a lot there. But most certainly, it sounds like possibly this student was in the minority in this classroom in terms of their political viewpoint, and then this teacher goes ahead and piles on. The teacher could face a range of disciplinary actions, including fines, suspension, revocation of her license. That teacher could also be cleared. The Education Practices Commission will ultimately determine whether any sanctions are imposed. Let's see. Crystal Marl, the student's mom, briefly talked about the incident during a Department of Education meeting. She said the certificate embarrassed her son and reflected what she called a toxic environment for conservative families and Alachua County schools. So the teacher went through the process of going on Canva or whatever, typing this thing out and presenting it to the student in front of the class. He was, offended, I think. Offended more than anything. And then I was angry as a parent. She told the news in a Zoom interview. She said that her son has faced online bullying and had to lock all of his social media accounts. You see? And so now we have a teacher who is just, they may not have meant for any of this, any of this other stuff to happen with the online bullying and whatnot, but they're kind of linked to it. Based on what this teacher did, they are now linked to the ongoing bullying of this student for their political beliefs online. And for what? To make what point? Like, he's afraid to go take his SATs on Saturday because he had to go to the high school. He was going to run into a bunch of these students who are slandering him, and it's very hurtful, she said. Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer wrote a letter to the Alachua County Public Schools. Superintendent for the teacher to be immediately terminated, never allowed to teach again in Florida. Shared a copy of his letter on X. Okay, yeah, here we go. So here is this Attorney General, who's also a politician. Now you have politicians, they got their hands in it. They're stirring stuff up, and this was all unnecessary. It's all because a teacher, once again, they crossed that line. They had no self-control. And the thing is this, because as adults, like we have, like we've made up our minds as adults. We've made our decisions. Like we pick a side that we like, and these politicians are really good at creating fans and whatnot. And because they have so many fans, they're able to escape accountability. And so we fight amongst each other, with our words. Of course, we fight against each other with our words because we've picked a political party, and the other side, they've picked theirs, and you know, I don't like what you say, and you know what, because I don't like what you say, I don't like you either. And so it's just very, very toxic, and now that is seeping into our classrooms, and we've got to stop. Because if we can't help students, the young people, adults they've made up their mind. Their adults are gone. We're gone. We're sticking to our side, and that's just, I think that's just the way it's going to be until we have a generation that comes up and says, you know what, I disagree with what you have to say, but that doesn't necessarily make you a bad person. We can still share this space even though we disagree, and I respect your right to say, you know, to say what you say and believe what you believe. And I heard you, but that doesn't change the way that I think about it and the way that I feel about it. But that's okay. We can respectfully share this space together. If we are not teaching students to do that, then we're just going to have more of the same, and we've got to stop. If you cannot restrain yourself from unloading on a student who disagrees with you politically, then you should not be in the classroom. All right, let's look at this tweet. A student in Florida was nominated by his teacher as most likely to become a dictator because he was a conservative. A parent just revealed. The teacher allowed students to label him not, what is that, not Nazi file, because he was interested in World War II and ROTC. I mean, it's just, I mean, now there's two sides to the story, so we haven't heard from the teacher, but it sounds like the teacher and the teacher is in charge of setting the tone in the classroom, setting a nice atmosphere, a nice environment for students to feel free to come in, learn, discuss, have an opinion, and respect the opinion of others. And it sounds like things just got out of control if they're throwing around this Nazi file. I've never heard of that before. It remains unclear when a decision on discipline will be made or whether the teacher will be allowed to continue teaching during the review process. So basically, they're doing an investigation. And so we'll stay on top of this story, but that's this. we cannot have this. We cannot have this. We've got to be able to teach young people how to have these disagreements and still respect each other and share the space. And when we have stuff like this, it really sets us back, and you just have that toxicity of politics. It just seeps into the classroom, it seeps into the discussion, and it's so hard. It just makes things even harder. It makes things even harder to fix it and move on, because well-meaning people are going to come. their well-meaning teachers are going to come and maybe try and have a discussion or have a debate, and then they're going to think about this and they're going to say, well, maybe I shouldn't do that because I don't want to get in trouble. This is sad. So we'll continue to follow this story, and as we get updates, I will share those with you. But thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next update.